Okay, so welcome everyone, glad you're here. So in this call, we're gonna start with a practice. I'll share a little bit about who I am and why I started this resilience. This will be the third year, this resilience immersion. I'll share a bunch more about the immersion, what it looks like, what it entails, and then I'll answer any questions you have, and then I'll tell you how to sign up at the end. So that's kind of what we're in for. So let's start with a practice, and we're going to explore 5 different aspects of you. And so we're going to explore the body, the breath, the energy, the mind, the intuition, and then this one has kind of, there's not really a right word for it, but spirit, connection, universe, whatever word that you want to describe that feeling of connection to something larger than you, whether that's mountains or God or your dog or whatever that might be. So I'm going to do it in a meditation style, but if you want to be standing or walking or even moving through it, you're more than welcome to. So find a position that your body wants to be in. And you are welcome to have your eyes open or closed. And this will be about 5 to 7 minutes. And start just by noticing your body in space, what it's touching. It might be the floor, it might be a chair, it might be a couch. And see if there's any way you could support your body to feel more at ease, whether that's making some adjustments or getting a blanket. And then tuning into the internal experience of the body and just noticing what's present there now. You might notice a lot, a little, or nothing. And as you tune into the body, you might find that it wants to move, it wants to express, or it wants to kind of lay back and chill and not be so upright and alert. So if you find that it's giving you some information that you can listen to and follow, go ahead and follow that guidance of the body. And then bringing your awareness into your breath. And first, just the simple fact that you can know that you're breathing or you're not. And then noticing the quality of the breath. Is it shallow? Is it deep? Is it fluid, or does it feel like it gets stuck at certain spots? Nothing needs to change. Just notice what is. And then bringing awareness to the mind. And the mind in this particular system is associated with the thoughts and the emotions. So see if you can step back and observe. Is the mind active? Is it quiet? Is it focused on one particular thing, or is it kind of bouncing around? Can you identify any emotions that are present? Could be one, could be many. And then tapping into that sense of intuition or wisdom. And so for me with this, sometimes I just like to be quiet and sort of listen to whatever's coming. And sometimes that's absolutely nothing. It's just quiet. And sometimes there's something that arises, something to pay attention to. So intuition can be loud, can be hard to hear. It can be clear, can be fuzzy. And then finally tuning into something that you feel a connection to. That could be a particular song or a place in nature or a person. And we're gonna circle that back to the body. So once you've brought into your awareness someone, something, somewhere that you feel connection to, what in your body tells you that that connection is there? Is it warmth or a smile or a softening of the belly? Or maybe it's the absence of something, it's the absence of tension or tightness or pain. And we'll take about 5 more breaths here. And if your eyes are closed, you can open your eyes. Take your time. And I'm just gonna pause before I dive in and see if either of you want to write in the chat anything that you noticed, or if you want to share verbally anything that you became aware of in that meditation. Okay. Well, feel free to keep if you're typing still, that's fine. I'm going to just give a little bit of background. We go into that, and I just want to start with the practice. I'll just talk a little bit about the practice. And so when I'm talking about yoga, and my background is I'm a mental health therapist, that's my clinical training, and then I've been a certified yoga therapist since 2007. And the way that I was trained in yoga is it's looking at all these aspects of ourselves. So a lot of times when people go to a yoga class, it's primarily different physical poses. And that's like from my teaching, my teachers, that's like one tiny sliver of yoga. And so when I'm thinking about what yoga is and how do we use yoga as a support for resourcing and resilience, I'm thinking about how can we resource and resilience our body, our energy, and our breath, our mind, our emotions, our intuition, and that sense of connection to something larger. So that's why I wanted to start with that practice, just so we could have a kind of common ground of where or what I'm thinking about when I'm using the word yoga. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as well. And so we can use mindfulness and awareness and different practices to access these different aspects of ourselves and then to resource them in different ways. And we can also experience resilience in different ways through these different parts of ourselves as well. So I might feel like if I'm getting over a cold, then my physical resilience might be kind of low, but maybe my intuition or my emotional resilience is kind of high. And so I can use these different aspects of myself to bolster, support, and honor these different parts that may need different things at different times. So kind of a holistic way of looking at our system and our beings in the world. So as a mental health therapist and yoga therapist, I primarily work with mental emotional challenges that are experienced in a lot of different ways. And so I've worked with a wide range of folks and with a wide range of lived experiences. I work a lot with trauma and depression, anxiety, grief, burnout, eating disorders, chronic pain, and also major life transitions like going through a divorce or empty nesting or big career changes. So those are some of the things that I really love working with around how do we cultivate resilience in the face of these life experiences that we have. And I would say that I particularly love working kind of in two different directions with folks. So I love working with the people who have done a lot of work, like they've been in therapy for 30 years and they could tell me their whole life story and why everything is happening the way that it is. They understand, but they still feel stuck. And so there can be that sense of like, I get it, but I don't get it. And sometimes by using these different aspects of ourselves, that knowledge that people have done such hard work to understand themselves can become embodied, and then it becomes like embodied wisdom. And so I love working with those analytical folks that are super smart and they really understand like how they work. And then I also love working with the kind of the other end of the spectrum, which is the people who learn through their bodies by doing and experiencing. Talking actually feels kind of like more traditional talk therapy might feel kind of anxiety provoking or difficult. And so the movers, the kinesthetic learners, and this is where I fall into. So if somebody says like, tell me how you're feeling, and I might be like, I don't know, I can't tell you, but I can show you. And so the people who are better at showing than telling, or experiencing rather than explaining, those are also the folks that I love working with as well. So I started this immersion 3 years ago after teaching Yoga for Resilience series classes for about 7 years, and then doing resilience coaching specifically in healthcare organizations that were experiencing high levels of vicarious trauma and burnout. And I've been doing that for the last 10 years. So resilience is something that I'm really passionate about myself. I've also experienced burnout and vicarious trauma and secondary trauma through my lifelong career. And I found that through yoga therapy and through my yoga practice, my meditation practices, my physical practices, that has helped me move through those experiences and be more sustainable, both in my job, in my relationships. I'm able to sleep better. There's lots and lots of things that I've been able to shift in my own relationship with the challenges that I've gone through these practices. So this is not just, I'm offering you these tools that I never use. These are what I actually use in my own daily life as well. And so I want to talk a little bit about what resilience is, and we're going to go way more into this and into the immersion, but I think this can be a helpful grounding. So I think of resilience in three different ways. And one is, I think of it as buoyancy. And this is straight from the definition of it. And so whatever kind of pulls us down, what helps us bounce back from that experience? And then another definition is flexibility. And I think of that as kind of this way. And so when I have rigid, if I only have like one or two tools in my toolbox, if I either shut down or I get angry and leave. And those aren't bad. Those are great. Those are great tools. We want those tools in our toolbox. But if those are my only tools, then I'm kind of in this rigid place where I don't have a lot of choice and I don't have a lot of agency of how I respond to whatever coming up in my life, whether it's an email that's difficult or a conflict with my partner or something much, much larger, or a bomb cyclone unexpectedly happens. And so as these things happen in our lives, we can notice like, what are our default ways of dealing with those things? And then resilience is how can I just keep adding to that so I have multiple options, so I'm not stuck in one way of handling things. So think of that as this. So having flexibility to meet life and the challenges, like the inevitable challenges and traumas that come with life, with agency and choice, and more than just being stuck in one particular way of showing up. And then the third way I think about resilience is an anchor. And so this has a lot of movement, and this has a lot of movement, and then there's the thing that holds us steady. And that can go right back to that meditation that we talked about, in that sense of connection. And so it could be being by the lake, it could be being in the snow, it could be being with your cat or your best friend. And so those things, those people, those places in our lives, those experiences that can keep us anchored when, again, there's like these inevitable storms that come. And so how do we meet those storms? With anchors, with buoyancy, and with flexibility. And then with resourcing, resourcing is essentially, so the immersion's called Resourcing and Resilience, and resourcing is essentially the tools, the skills, the strengths you already have, because I come from a deep belief that everybody is resilient. I'm not going to be teaching anybody to be resilient. You already are, you wouldn't be here. And like me and all of us, we can also keep building our resilience. And so I'm learning right along with you, and you're resilient right along with me. So the resourcing are acknowledging those ways that we're already resilient, and then how do we add to that so we can be more buoyant, we can be more flexible, and we can be more anchored. And then I talked a little bit about this after the meditation, but again, just to ground into what I'm talking about when I'm talking about yoga. So yoga is a Sanskrit word, and it translates to union, integration, or abiding in our true nature. And Sanskrit is a complicated language where one word can have many, many different meanings. And so those are a few of the translations of that word. And so when I'm thinking about yoga, I'm thinking about how do we integrate all those aspects of ourselves that may feel fragmented, or some I might have access to and some I might feel like I don't have access to. Like maybe it's hard for me to feel my body, but I'm like really aware of my emotions, or I can't access intuition at all, but my body's screaming at me. So these different parts that can feel kind of siloed. And when we can integrate all those, we'll again have more resources, but we'll also have this sense of wholeness of all the parts of ourselves are together. And then from a yoga philosophy perspective, when we're fully integrated, when we know our wholeness, when we can access that wholeness, we are inherently whole. And part of the human condition is forgetting that wholeness. And part of the yoga practice is coming back to remember it. So it's not like we've ever been whole and then we're broken and then we're whole again. We're always whole. We just forget it. And so when integration and union happen, that is a remembering of our wholeness, or what in some translations would say coming back to our true nature or our divine nature. Again, there's lots of words to talk about these things that sometimes don't really have clear words to talk about. So the immersion is not going to be a simple physical practice where we come together and we do a bunch of yoga poses and then you leave. It'll be much more robust than that, of looking at all these different aspects of ourselves and how do we use all those parts of ourselves to support resilience. And that can include, so some of the some of the immersion will include talking, guided meditation, self-guided movement, directed movement. It might look like some yoga poses, I put in quotes, some that you might know, but it also might look like we start with embodied intention. And so I'm just going to throw an example out. So if my intention is I am strong and clear, and I say, if there's a shape or a movement that honors or addresses that or says, this is how it feels when I feel strong and confident, then my shape might look like my hands on my hips, or it might look like my arms up. And so it might not look like a warrior pose or triangle pose, but it might be your pose. And so one of the things that we'll do is it's almost a more intuitive movement or self-directed movement than me telling you this is a shape that we're going to put your body into. We'll do some of guided movement practices as well, but it'll look different than just being led through a series of physical poses. There will be breath work and energy work. There'll be kind of tuning into that intuition and how do we do that. There'll be artwork and journaling, and then in between sessions, there's more journal prompts and reading assignments, and there's lots of material for you to keep working with and playing with. So the structure of it is we'll meet in, so this is new for this year. I'm doing an in-person option and an online option, so it'll be hybrid. So if you're in the Seattle area, you can be in person in South Seattle, and then, or you can be online. And we'll meet 4 times for group classes, and those will be 2-hour classes on Saturdays from 11 to 1. And it's like the 3rd or 4th Saturday of the month. And then each class will have a theme that we'll explore through these different aspects of ourselves. And then each class is going to build on each other, where you'll have a month to incorporate some new skills. Like the first month, we're going to focus on looking at your nervous system, understanding your nervous system, how to honor your nervous system, and then specific lifestyle practices that can settle and stabilize the nervous system. And then you'll have a month to put those things into practice, see what works, see what doesn't work, see where you get stuck. And then the next month, which the second month is around centering and grounding, we'll add more tools onto that. So you have time to incorporate and integrate these things into your life before we add on. And then in between the group sessions, there will be other things to kind of keep you engaged in the material. So additional readings, movement practices. I'll also do some guided meditations and contemplations for you to keep exploring throughout the month. And then in addition to that, you're also going to get an individual 50-minute integration session with me in between each group session. So what's great about this is sometimes in group classes, I can't actually really address everything that's going on for you specifically. And so what I love about this is you get a big toolbox, and then we get to work together individually where we can tailor it or modify it or adjust things so it works specifically to your individual needs. And then also we can add different tools in and different supports in and different resources in that address what you're going through in particular. So those are great because if you feel like you're getting stuck with some things or something, because some of the tools for some people feel really useful and helpful, and for other people, they feel triggering and difficult. And so wherever you're at along that spectrum, we come together and then we can kind of hone in on them and go, okay, what's going to be the best way to use these skills specifically for you? So the beginning of the beginning of the immersion, we start with an embodied intention, and like I mentioned, we talk about your nervous systems and lifestyle recommendations, and we're going to go into in-depth experience about your life, not your lifestyle, but your nervous system and how it's uniquely wired, because everybody's nervous system is wired differently. And so you'll get to know, how does yours work, and what are the triggers for you, and what are the things that help your nervous system? What are the things that help balance it? What are the things that lead it out of balance? And how to also honor that. And so it's I was just having a conversation with somebody earlier today. The goal of nervous system resilience is not to always be happy or content or fine, but it's how do you go through the cycles of, oh, I'm triggered, oh, I'm shutting down, oh, I'm enjoying this experience. And so to allow the nervous system to move through those states, and they can get stuck, and we'll talk a little bit about this. So trauma can keep the nervous system stuck in one of those states, whether it's a fight or flight state or it's a frozen state. And so allowing the nervous system to have some flexibility, because again, that's like a rigid nervous system, and that's again not bad. That's a survival tool. And how do we support the nervous system to be able to have a little bit more flexibility in its ability to go through the different cycles or the different experiences of the nervous system? So that'll be the whole first class. And then we'll go into specific grounding and centering practices. And our intention is always woven through the whole series and the whole program. And then we go into befriending the body, and that will be attuning to the wisdom and the brilliance of the body as a resource for resilience, and learning. It always kind of comes back to the nervous system as well. So using the body in particular, again, there's so many ways to work with the nervous system. There's so many ways to center and ground, and then there's so many ways to work with the body. So we'll work with the body in ways that can support both honoring the nervous system and settling the nervous system. And then exploring the body also through these different 5 lenses. And so how does the body process emotions? How does the body process thoughts? And again, just like in the meditation, when the last part where I said, when you have that connection to something larger than yourself or something that's meaningful to you, where do you feel that? And so the body, again, we'll talk a lot more about this in the immersion, but the body is really the gateway of all those other parts of ourselves. So without the body, we couldn't feel the breath, we couldn't have emotions, we couldn't have thoughts, we couldn't have intuition or connection. And so using this tool as an incredible resource to work with these different parts of ourselves. And then finally, in the last group class, we explore a very specific type of meditation called Yoga Nidra. Nidra translates to sleep. It's another Sanskrit word. And there's lots of ways to work with Yoga Nidra. And the way that we're going to work with it is to use it as a guided practice to address specific challenges. So you're going to bring whatever challenge you experience, and then you'll also have it as a resource beyond the immersion. So if something comes up at work and you're like, I don't know how to deal with this, you can go back to this meditation and use it as a way to unpack that challenge and to see how do you want to respond to that, or what do you need to do to process through that, whatever arising is happening. So that's kind of the meat of the immersion, is these 4 group classes and these 4 integration sessions with me. And then at the end of that, we'll have a day-long, this is again new for this year, which I'm really excited about, to have a day-long integration and expansion retreat. And this is where we'll hone in on the skills that we learned through the immersion. We'll reflect on the work that we've done. Because a lot of times what I've seen in previous immersions is people incorporate things, but then at the end they're like, but I still do this and I still do this. And I'm like, yeah, but look at what's different. So I still have challenges too. And it can be really helpful to pause and go, what has already changed in these 5 months? And to have that reflection point. And then also to make a plan. So as you go beyond the immersion, sometimes and I've certainly done this, I go to a workshop and then I'm done and it's like, okay, now what? And so we're going to have that intentional time to say, now what? We're going to go back to our intention. We're going to make a plan for how to live these principles going forward, and how you want to incorporate them, how you already have incorporated them, and how you want to continue to do that. And then you can but refine or revise your intention needed as you go into the next post-immersion life. I also will say that I'm going to give you way more than you can actually incorporate. So I tend to give you a lot of things, and if you incorporate like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of them, you're doing great. But I tend, like, one way to think about it is like I give you a buffet and you like take the ones that work for you and leave the ones that don't. And then in addition to that, you also will get a bonus recording of a loving kindness practice. And loving kindness can be such a beautiful practice to cultivate friendliness and compassion towards yourself. So if you fall into the category of, yeah, but I still do this thing, or yeah, I might have done great there, but I'm still struggling with this. Loving kindness can be a practice that can really support treating yourself with kindness and tenderness, like you might treat your friend who you love, who you're like, you're awesome. And they're like, but no, you're like, but no, you're just awesome. So loving kindness. And that's not to say that we don't keep striving or growing or doing the hard work. We do, and we can do it from a different place, a place of like loving myself versus I need to fix myself because there's something wrong with me. So loving kindness can be a really beautiful practice. So that will be a bonus for the immersion. And just what I've noticed in the last 2 immersions from folks who have been part of it is more compassion towards their body, really a deep understanding of their nervous system and how it's always working to protect them, and a softening or even a stopping of that war against the nervous system. Like, my nervous system should be doing something other than what it's doing right now. To that has shifted to oh, my nervous system is freaking out right now because I'm scared, or because I'm nervous, or because I don't understand what's happening and I'm confused. And so having that sort of distance between there's something wrong with me to my nervous system is having a response, how do I take care of that nervous system, has been a pretty radical shift, I've noticed. Some people feel that they can navigate uncertainty more easily, be more present with people in their lives. On like a very practical note, people have been able to sleep better or have less physical pain. Some people have said they've wanted to meditate for a long time and they were able to find that practice here and stick with it. They were able to navigate conflict better. And then a big one somebody said was they were able to live their intention and not just say it as this sort of out of reach thing. Like, I want this thing, but I don't have it and it's far away from me. And so one thing with intention that I'm really feel passionate about is like, you already do live it, and how do we keep strengthening and building it versus here's this thing that you don't have any access to and how are we going to get there? That's not true. You do have access to it in some capacity, and how do we keep growing that capacity? So who is this immersion for? I would say it's people who feel overtaxed, burned out, or their gas tank is on E. People who find the traditional talk therapy isn't getting at it in a way that's kind of moving it or shifting it. It can also be a really great addition or adjunct or support to more traditional talk therapy. I would say if that's you, I would say talk to your therapist first. Sometimes there can be other varying factors there. Like I said at the beginning, people who have done a lot of work but still feel stuck, people who learn through their bodies. And then specifically, I've also worked with a lot of folks who have experienced chronic pain, depression, anxiety, and trauma as well. And then people who are preparing or going through a big transition. And then just to be clear, who is this not for? This is not a replacement for therapy. So if you find that you are really in need of consistent mental health therapy, this is not a substitute for that care at all. It can be a great adjunct or supplement, but it's not a replacement for therapy. People looking to be trained in yoga therapy. So this is only for personal use. This is not a training. There's no, you can take this out and use this with other folks. If you are a healthcare provider, and I have had healthcare providers in the immersions before, and I think it's great because this work can be hard. I also do consultation. So that would be a different avenue if you wanted to incorporate yoga into the work that you're already doing. And then, as I mentioned earlier, if people are primarily looking for kind of not even, I wouldn't call it traditional, but like a Western yoga class where you come in and you do some poses for an hour or so and then you leave. There's many wonderful yoga classes like that around town, and that's just not what we're going to be doing in the immersion. So if that's something that you want, I'm happy to give you referrals for that. So I've been talking for a while now, so I'm going to pause there and just see if there's any questions or clarifications you need around the immersion or anything you want to bring up. So, and then the last part that I'll just share is the investment for the immersion is $9.99, and I do offer payment plans as well. And then because you came here and took this hour to be together, I'm also extending one additional individual session for the first 5 people who sign up. It's a way to honor your commitment. And so that session we can either do prior to the immersion and do kind of like a prep session or for how to get ready for it, or you can have an additional session throughout the 5 months that we're together. So if you have any other questions, then let me know and I'll send the recording out, and you can always know where to find me. So if you have any other questions, you can let me know.